Hello, my name's Jonathan Smith. I'm the Deputy Head Teacher here at Ridgeway Primary School, and I'm going to be talking to you a little bit more about how the teaching and learning works for the children who are in Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. For those who don't know, Key Stage 1 refers to children in years 1 and 2, or what might have been thought of as infants, and Key Stage 2 comprises of years 3, 4, 5 and 6, which might have been thought of as the junior part of the school. So I'm just going to share with you how the teaching and learning works to give you a better understanding of what you can expect for your children to be taught and for them to learn should they come to our school. So, as you may have already heard from colleagues who have talked about learning in the early years, there is a curriculum upon which we base the Ridgeway curriculum. So that starts in year 1 and we follow the national curriculum, which is widely available for you to see online, but we also have other elements that we use to enrich that curriculum for the children that really makes it special and part of the Ridgeway offer. So I'll be talking a bit more about some of those additional elements of our curriculum, but in terms of the national curriculum and the traditional subjects, so English, maths, science, history, geography, etc., we use the national curriculum and we combine the learning topics within those different subjects into what we call context for learning. So each term from years 1 through to year 6, the children have a context upon which most of their learning is based. And what that really does is it really ties the subjects together to make a really rich experience for the children so they can really immerse themselves in interconnected learning. So what it helps to do is bring each separate subject to life. So rather than learning each subject in a very discrete, unconnected way, they still are very clear about the history and the science and the geography and so on that they're learning, but it's all tied together within a similar and familiar theme, so the children can actually immerse themselves and learn much more deeply. In Key Stage 1, the way that the learning is structured is through daily challenges, so learning challenges. And what that means is that the adults plan carefully along the lines of the national curriculum, and they plan for challenges at different tables that are laid out in the room for the children. And the children then access those challenges that are designed to kind of develop and give them opportunity to demonstrate their understanding in a range of ways across the different subject areas. So there might be 4 or 5 challenges in each classroom every day, and the children choose to access those in the order that they feel happiest or the order that most interests them. And 2 of those challenges are always led by adults, so a teacher and a teaching assistant. And other challenges are more independent for the children to approach them in a way that they feel will both challenge them, but also a way that they feel comfortable. So the learning environment in Key Stage 1 is very flexible. The structure is very much designed around building on the early years principles of children being independent, children being able to problem solve for themselves, to collaborate, to be creative. So it really helps children move from the early years style of learning through into the national curriculum subject areas in a way that is familiar with them and gives them confidence to build on their skills and knowledge, both in terms of curriculum subjects, but also other areas as well. So there's lots of opportunities for children to drive the learning, to shape it, to talk to the adults about how they might approach things. And we really value that here at Ridgeway Primary School. Moving through into Key Stage 2, the Ridgeway curriculum continues. So it's still focused or based on the national curriculum, and we still have those contexts for learning that I've mentioned. So the themes continue to grow as they move up through the school, right through until they leave in year 6. So on our website, you'll be able to read up some of the examples, and the teachers have put some information together to give you a bit of a flavour of what each context contains. So it's well worth having a look at that. The flexible and varied structure continues in Key Stage 2, and while there might be some more use of whole class teaching and learning, it's still done within a very flexible way to again build on those skills that children have learned through the early years in Key Stage 1. So there's still lots of opportunities for high levels of pupil dialogue, lots of problem solving, lots of opportunities for them to really develop and demonstrate their understanding in a range of different subject areas in a range of different ways. So there will be, formal requirements for them to do, put pen to paper and produce pieces of writing, or to do scientific experiments, but there's lots of freedom within that for the children to really show what they understand, and for teachers to really listen and adapt the learning based on the interests and the skills and abilities of the children in their particular cohort. So it's still based on those principles from the early years, but it's structured around the national curriculum. So the teachers in Key Stages 1 and 2 really understand their subject areas very deeply so that they can plan from the curriculum, but they also really understand their individual children and classes very deeply so that they can provide lots of rich learning opportunities that will engage and motivate the children. So the other areas that we really try to build on through our school, through the children's time they're here with us, are what we refer to as lifelong learning skills. So I've touched on some of those already, things like independence, risk-taking, their ability to be resilient and persevere through challenge, their ability to think deeply about problems, to collaborate with one another, which requires lots of communication, things like compromise. So there's lots of skills that we strongly feel will stand the children in good stead as they move through our school into secondary education, but also beyond schooling, beyond formal education, and into the world of work and into their personal lives and their relationships with others once they've left school. So we really place high value on developing this very broad, deep, rich set of skills. Another area that we really develop in our children through their time here is metacognition, that ability for them to understand what they are like as learners, the skills and strengths that they have, and the areas that they find more challenging. And we really encourage children to embrace both their strengths and the areas that they find trickier, and to seek help and to seek ways to challenge themselves and to develop other areas. Similarly, we ask children and educate and develop their ability to be self-regulators, to recognize their emotional states when they're feeling in a really good place for learning and in a really happy place in terms of their relationships, but also when moments or situations that they find more difficult, and for them to recognize the emotions associated with more difficult feelings and more challenging situations, so that they can start to recognize those cues and those physiological or emotional or mental sort of cues and signals, and to develop a toolkit of strategies they can use to help get themselves back on track into a happy, positive place where they're ready to learn and have positive relationships. So there's a wide variety of things that we develop in the children while they're here at Ridgeway Primary School. And then in terms of feedback to the children, our feedback will centre on that very broad curriculum that I've just described. So not only does our feedback centre on academic subjects and curriculum areas, but it will also get children to really think about their lifelong learning skills and themselves as their emotions and their ability to self-regulate. So we don't have a formal written method of marking that you might be used to or might have remember from being at school, where there are scores out of 10 or comments or ticks in books. So remote marking, we don't focus on that. We focus very much on having verbal conversations with children so that they are very clear, coming from the adults as educators, as experts in teaching and learning, what it is that they have done well and what it is that they need to focus on next. And the purpose of that is that children can then have an immediate impact and immediately make changes to their learning so that it's fresh in their minds. They really understand, they can ask questions back of the adults if they're not clear on that feedback and what they need to do next or why that's a next step. So the immediacy of it and the verbal two-way nature of the feedback is something we really value very highly. And we know that research shows that has a bigger impact on children rather than remote marking or simply scores that might be fairly arbitrary and not necessarily communicate to the child what their successes and areas for development are. So similarly to that, we value and celebrate children's learning in a range of ways. So we build on all those things that we're trying to develop in the children, and we place a very high value on children's learning in displays in our school. So on display boards, in the corridors and in the classrooms, we really want children's learning to be the centre of everything that is shown in our school here at Ridgeway. So it really shows the children there's a purpose and a value. And what that does is it really makes the children intrinsically motivated, and they want to learn because they value learning and because they're excited by learning, and they see the progress that they are making as individuals and how it benefits them to be really focused on what they're doing. So children's learning, we talk about learning often because learning never ends. It doesn't finish in the way that perhaps work does, but we really value everything that they're doing and really celebrate the successes that they've had in quite specific ways. So they're really clear about what they've done really well. So in terms of home learning, the learning they do at home with you and their families, we can do a variety of things, but there are some things that you will see quite regularly happen, particularly from year 1 onwards. We like children to read daily, right from when they start here from the nursery, and the teachers can provide some guidance to families and to children about things that they can do at home to support that reading development right from the early years through to our more mature learners who are thinking a bit more about comprehension and unpicking grammatical structures and use of language and punctuation in the books that they read. So that reading is very much an ongoing journey, but something that really underpins everything else that we're doing here at school. So we like the children to read daily with adults and to discuss books and text and to really enjoy reading as an experience. There are other things that we do weekly, like there'll be spellings for the children to practice and to learn. There might be a handwriting element to that. There'll be regular maths learning that comes home, which is about really children embedding core math skills like number bonds and times tables and sort of maths facts and arithmetic skills that will really stand them in good stead and support lots of their maths learning. And then a sort of a key feature of our home learning is something we call pre-think. And what that is that the teachers will know what topics or learning is coming up next, and they will get children to go home and think about what's coming up next. And the idea of this is that children can talk about it, say what they, talk to family at home about what they already know, find out some things, do some reading and research, and come up with some questions that they want to explore in school. And the rationale for that approach is that knowledge is relatively easy to acquire in this modern digital age. And if children want to know facts about things, they can pretty much find out instantly through tablets, phones, through computers, PCs, laptops, etc. The really key thing is what they then do with that knowledge. And that's what we like to do with them in school. So if they can bring a base level of interest, inquiry, some facts that they can bring in with them, what we have found and our experience tells us in school is that children bringing in a wide variety of knowledge within the topic area and an array of questions really enriches what the teachers can do in school. It gives them a bit of a head start. It gives them a bit of a motivating place to begin because they are leading and driving and in control of that learning. And what teachers can then do is use their skills to really deepen that learning experience for the children and start to analyse the knowledge that they have and get children to really think about how they might apply it and how they're going to use it and to start to synthesize their own sort of questions and lines of inquiry. So that forms the basis of the home learning approach here at Ridgeway. Other areas to talk about with you, we have a forest school area that is a dedicated area that the children can explore as part of our formal forest school teaching area. It's always led by a dedicated and qualified group of staff. They've all been through the training, and so they have a very clear purpose for that space and what children do when they're with them in that space. The children, really, it's focused on developing 2 sets of skills. One is their outdoor skills. So you can see children there making fire. They learn to respect a variety of tools and equipment that require them to be respectful of risk assessments and being safe. And so it might involve tools and using fire in that way, in that very controlled environment. But also it's about their social, emotional, behavioural development. So it puts them in situations that they might find quite challenging, but it's developing a very specific set of skills in that way. They might have to collaborate together and use communication in a completely different environment. So it's outside in the natural world. So they get to really think about and experience learning in a different environment. And they all really value that. So all children get their turn in there. It's sometimes done as part of organised groups, as part of their turn in a class. It might be specific groups that are out there for a nurture support kind of session. So there's a variety of ways that we can use that. Something that parents often like to wonder is about children's kind of social time and play time that they get away from the classroom. So it's quite reassuring. Often parents say to know that there are designated spaces for children to play with their friends that are appropriate for their size and age. So we have a nursery area dedicated just for our nursery children. There's areas on the left there that are built specifically for reception children. So the play equipment is designed for their physical size and to help them develop their physical areas of their play. Key Stage 1 children have a separate playground that includes a really wonderful climbing frame that they can also clamber on and explore and be physical in. And the older children in Key Stage 2 also have their own playground, as well as a couple of our other areas. So at the top there, you can see there is a multi-use games area, which is an AstroTurf pitch. So they get to take turns in there and play sports they might not be able to play on a crowded playground. And at the bottom there, they also have a trim trail, which is similar to what the children in reception and Key Stage 1 have. So we've got some really varied age-appropriate facilities that the children love to enjoy with their friends in their classes and year groups. So beyond school and the actual school day, we've got a range of extracurricular clubs and activities that we run. Some of those are run internally by school staff, and that can be based on the demand of the children. So children asked for a chess club, so a member of staff started running that. We've had a variety of different things. We've had computer coding clubs. Some children were really interested in American football one year. So depending on what the children are interested in, we will try and provide that as best we can. There are perennial favourites like art club and cookery club. And I can see recently this year we've introduced a board games club, and there's other things that will always come up. We have a couple of specialist music teachers, one of whom runs a choir, and there has also been a recorder ensemble in the past. And then in addition to the activities that school runs, there are also activities that external coaches and clubs run. So there's a football coach that's been coming for a long time, and he seems to cater for children from years 2 right up to year 5 and 6. There are specialist music teachers who are run by the Croydon Music Service, and they lead paid for music lessons in things like piano and flute and violin and things like that. And there's other things like language clubs. There's a French teacher and a Spanish teacher that come to do, again, paid for lessons if children are interested. There's a tennis coach. So there really is a wide variety of things that children can engage with here at school. And we try to meet their needs as best we can and stoke interests wherever possible. So that just gives you a bit of a flavour of what happens here at Ridgeway Primary. And you may well be coming on a tour soon, and children will take you around and give you a warts and all view of what life is like here at our school. So we hope to see you soon, and hopefully you've been able to get some information from this recording as well as our website to get a feel of what we're like at our school. Thank you.